Deep within the heart of the dense woods, shrouded in an otherworldly silence, stood an abandoned cabin that seemed to defy the passage of time. Its weather-beaten walls groaned under the weight of forgotten memories, and the creaking timbers whispered secrets to those willing to listen. I had always prided myself on being a skeptic, scoffing at tales of ghosts and spirits. It was this skepticism that led me and a group of friends to venture into the wilderness for a camping trip. The idea of spending the night in an old, dilapidated cabin we stumbled upon added an element of thrill to our adventure. As the night descended and shadows stretched across the forest floor, we gathered around a flickering campfire, our laughter echoing through the desolate woods. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and the distant hooting of an owl added an eerie soundtrack to our tales of bravery. Eventually, curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to explore the forgotten cabin. Its windows were like hollow eyes staring into the abyss, and the door swung open with a spine-chilling creak, as if welcoming us into its haunted embrace. Inside, dust danced in the dim light filtering through cracked boards, and the air was heavy with a sense of abandonment. The creaking floorboards beneath our feet echoed through the desolate cabin as we set up our sleeping bags. A chilling wind whistled through the gaps in the walls, adding an ethereal melody to the night. Despite the eerie ambience, I remained steadfast in my skepticism, dismissing the unease that crept into my subconscious. As the night wore on, and the embers of the campfire dimmed to a soft glow, sleep enveloped the cabin like a shroud. It was then that I was jolted awake by a peculiar sound, a distant murmur that seemed to originate from the kitchen. My eyes strained against the darkness as I tried to make sense of the noise. With cautious steps, I left the safety of my sleeping bag and tiptoed through the cabin. The floor beneath me seemed to groan in protest, echoing my apprehension. The kitchen door loomed before me, a gateway to the unknown. The murmur grew louder, evolving into a rhythmic chant that sent shivers down my spine. Summoning every ounce of courage, I pushed the creaking door open just enough to peek inside. The scene before me froze the blood in my veins. A figure stood in the middle of the kitchen, bathed in an otherworldly glow. It was tall and thin, with long, flowing hair that cascaded like a waterfall of shadows. My breath caught in my throat as I watched, paralyzed, unable to comprehend the surreal sight. The figure wore a white dress that billowed in an unseen wind, and for a moment, I questioned the reality of what lay before me. It felt like a dream, a nightmare that would dissipate with the dawn. But then, the figure turned its head, and dread clawed at my chest. It had no face. Where eyes should have been, there were only hollow sockets, and its featureless visage seemed to peer into the very depths of my soul. A guttural scream tore from my throat, and I stumbled backward, slamming the kitchen door shut. Heart pounding, I fumbled to lock the door, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I retreated to the safety of my room, the echoes of the figure's chant haunting my every step. I barricaded myself in, lying in the darkness as the night crawled towards morning. I had always been a skeptic, but that night shattered the illusions I held about the supernatural. I couldn't explain what I had witnessed in that abandoned cabin, but one thing was certain: I had crossed a threshold into a realm where skepticism crumbled, and the inexplicable held sway. I've never been back to that cabin since. I don't know if what I saw was real or not, but I'm not taking any chances. Morning arrived like a reluctant savior, casting away the shadows that had clung to the cabin throughout the night. The forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and the once ominous structure stood silent, its secrets hidden in the recesses of time. I emerged from the room, disheveled and haunted by the night's events. The sunlight filtering through the dusty windows painted the cabin in a more benign light, yet the memories of the faceless figure lingered like a ghostly specter. My friends, unaware of the horrors that had unfolded, were already awake, chattering about the peculiar dreams they'd had. Unable to shake the profound disturbance that clung to my psyche, I feigned a smile, masking the terror that simmered beneath the surface. The trek back through the woods was a silent procession, each footstep a reminder of the night's encounter. I hesitated to share my experience, fearing the disbelieving looks and dismissive laughter that would surely follow. As days turned into weeks, the memory of the faceless figure refused to be exorcised from my thoughts. The skepticism that once shielded me from the supernatural crumbled, replaced by an unsettling awareness of the unknown. The questions gnawed at my mind, each unanswered query a gateway to a realm I dared not explore. I delved into the annals of local folklore, seeking any hint that might shed light on the mysterious apparition that haunted the cabin. Whispers of a tragedy echoed through the tales, a family that had once called the cabin home, their fate shrouded in tragedy. The figure, some claimed, was the manifestation of the anguish that lingered, a spectral reminder of a life cut short. Haunted by a relentless curiosity, I found myself drawn back to the cabin, my personal crucible of disbelief. The once menacing structure now stood in a state of disrepair, a monument to the passage of time. With trepidation clawing at my chest, I stepped inside, the memories of that fateful night flooding back. The air was thick with a palpable tension as I retraced the steps I had taken in the dark. The kitchen door hung ajar, swaying with an eerie rhythm. As I approached, a whisper danced on the fringes of perception, a familiar chant that sent shivers down my spine. Dread wrapped its icy fingers around my heart, and the door swung open, revealing the desolate kitchen. There, bathed in the pale light filtering through shattered windows, stood the figure. The flowing hair, the white dress, and the chilling absence of a face, it was as if time had frozen, preserving the spectral presence within these dilapidated walls. The figure turned its head, its empty gaze fixed upon me. A symphony of voices, echoes of the past, flooded my mind. The tragedy that befell the family unfolded like a macabre play, and I became an unwitting spectator to a tale of sorrow and despair. The figure beckoned, an ethereal hand extended in a silent plea. Terrified yet compelled, I approached, the boundary between the living and the spectral realm blurring. The figure's gaze bore into my soul, revealing the pain etched in its featureless countenance. The chant intensified, an otherworldly chorus that resonated with the beating of my heart. In that moment, the skepticism that once shielded me crumbled completely. The supernatural ceased to be a realm of disbelief, becoming an intricate tapestry of stories left untold. The faceless figure, a guardian of forgotten memories, sought solace in the acknowledgement of its existence. I've never been back to that cabin since. The mysteries that unfolded within its walls left an indelible mark on my perception of reality. The woods, once a backdrop for my skepticism, became a repository of untold stories, each rustle of leaves and distant murmur a reminder that the line between the living and the spectral is more fragile than we dare to imagine. Years passed, and the memory of that haunting encounter lingered, a specter in the recesses of my mind. The faceless figure became a constant presence in my thoughts, a reminder that the world held mysteries beyond the grasp of logic and reason. Life moved forward, but the cabin in the woods cast a long shadow. I embraced the inexplicable, delving into the study of the supernatural with an insatiable curiosity. Books on ghosts, spirits, and the unexplained piled up in my study, each volume a testament to the journey that had begun in that abandoned cabin. Yet, no matter how deep my understanding of the paranormal grew, the enigma of the faceless figure persisted. It became a beacon, drawing me back to the cabin time and again. The forest, once a place of trepidation, now felt like a sacred ground, a threshold to a realm where the veil between the living and the dead was thin. In the years that followed, whispers of the cabin spread through the community. Some dismissed it as a mere legend, while others spoke in hushed tones about the eerie happenings that surrounded the decaying structure. The faceless figure had become a guardian of secrets, a silent witness to the passage of time. One stormy night, as lightning shattered the sky and thunder roared like a vengeful deity, I found myself standing once again before the cabin's weather-beaten door. The wind howled through the trees, as if echoing the mournful cry of the past. With each step, the floorboards beneath my feet groaned in recognition, as if welcoming back a wayward traveler. The door swung open with a haunting creak, and the familiar scent of decay mingled with the dampness of the storm. The cabin, now a relic frozen in time, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. I moved through its dilapidated halls, my senses attuned to the spectral echoes that reverberated within. The kitchen, the site of the fateful encounter, beckoned like a forgotten shrine. As I entered, a cold breeze whispered through shattered windows, carrying with it the haunting chant that had etched itself into my soul. The air thickened with anticipation, and I knew that the faceless figure awaited. There it stood, in the pale glow of my flashlight, unchanged by the passage of time. The figure turned towards me, its empty gaze fixing on mine. The chant swelled, intertwining with the storm's symphony, creating a tapestry of sound that transcended the boundaries of the mundane. With a silent understanding, I reached out, my hand trembling as it passed through the figure's ethereal form. The whispers of the past flooded my mind, a tale of tragedy, of lives interrupted, and of a restless spirit seeking acknowledgement. The faceless figure, a guardian of forgotten memories, seemed to shimmer with a spectral luminescence. In that moment, skepticism and belief merged into a singular truth. I stood at the crossroads of the known and the unknowable. The cabin, once a source of terror, became a conduit to a realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead were mere illusions. As the storm outside raged on, I felt a profound connection to the spectral presence within the cabin. The faceless figure, no longer a harbinger of fear, stood as a testament to the stories left untold, a guardian of the liminal spaces where reality and the supernatural converged. I stepped out into the storm, the rain washing away the remnants of skepticism that clung to my being. The cabin, now receding into the darkness, echoed with a chorus of voices, whispers of gratitude, of release, and of a journey that had come full circle. I've never been back to that cabin since, for it exists now as a memory, an indelible chapter in the chronicles of the unexplained. The woods, once a realm of uncertainty, became a sanctuary, a testament to the mysteries that defy comprehension. And as the storm subsided, I walked away, forever changed by a night that shattered the boundaries between the tangible and the spectral. The journey back through the woods felt like a pilgrimage, each step a silent acknowledgement of the unseen forces that had shaped my understanding of the world. The storm, having spent its fury, left behind a damp, glistening landscape, and the air carried a sense of renewal. As I emerged from the dense canopy into the clearing where our journey had begun, the memories of that fateful night seemed to dissolve in the dappled sunlight. The abandoned cabin, now a distant silhouette against the receding storm clouds, stood as a relic of a time when the line between skepticism and belief blurred. The faceless figure, no longer confined to the decaying walls of the cabin, lingered in the periphery of my consciousness. It had become a part of the stories I shared, a cautionary tale that bridged the gap between the tangible and the ethereal. Life continued its inexorable march forward, but the lessons of that night remained etched in my soul. The supernatural, once an object of skepticism, had become a facet of reality, a realm woven into the fabric of our existence. The stories I told on my YouTube channel echoed with a newfound authenticity, a resonance born from personal experience. The woods, once a source of fear, now held a tranquil beauty. The rustling leaves and the distant calls of wildlife became a harmonious backdrop to the narratives I spun. The faceless figure had become a symbol, a guardian of the unspoken, a keeper of the mysteries that linger in the shadowy corners of our collective consciousness. As the years unfolded, the tales of the abandoned cabin wove themselves into the folklore of the region. Some dismissed them as fanciful yarns, while others shared their own encounters with the spectral presence that dwelled within the woods. The cabin itself, succumbing to the relentless march of time, gradually faded into obscurity, becoming a mere whisper in the wind. And so, the chapter of the faceless figure closed, but its legacy endured in the stories I shared and the minds it had touched. The skeptic in me had transformed, not into a blind believer, but into a seeker, a traveler in the twilight realms of the unexplained. I've never been back to that cabin since, but its memory lingers in the pages of my journals and the pixels of my videos. The woods, once a labyrinth of fear, now stand as a testament to the transformative power of the unknown. As I continue to share the stories that find their way to me, I remain ever cognizant of the thin veil that separates the known from the enigmatic, a boundary that, once crossed, can reshape the very fabric of our reality.